I've been asked to foster my son's best friend, and while part of me knows I have to say yes, I'm honestly not sure if I can handle everything that comes with it. My son is 12. His best friend is 14. They met in 5th grade when the kid moved into the neighborhood, and within 3 weeks they were inseparable. He started showing up at our door on Saturday mornings before I'd had coffee. At first I thought he was just one of those kids who liked being around a house with snacks and a big TV. It took me longer than it should have to understand what was actually going on. His mom is an addict. I don't know the full picture, but what I could see was the aftermath. My son's friend would show up in the same clothes he'd been wearing since Thursday. He'd eat like someone who wasn't sure when his next meal was coming. There was a weekend he came over with a bruise on his arm he said he got from football. My son doesn't play football, neither does his friend. I started quietly filling in the gaps. I'd pack an extra sandwich when I drove them to school. On weekends, I'd throw his clothes in the wash while they played Xbox and have them folded before he left. I bought him deodorant and soap and left them in the bathroom drawer like they'd always been there. He never said anything about it, neither did I. It just became our normal. His school had him on the at-risk register. Social services had been involved off and on for over a year. I kept thinking someone with more authority was watching out for him. I kept thinking the system would catch up before I had to make any hard decisions. Then last Tuesday, my phone rang. A social worker introduced herself and told me they were moving forward with removing my son's friend from his home. A formal section was being put in place. He needed a foster placement immediately. The school had recommended me. She was calling to ask if I'd take him in, likely through to age 18. I stood in my kitchen and didn't say anything for a few seconds. I remember looking at the 2 cereal bowls still on the counter from that morning and thinking that 3 bowls would be a different life. I'm a single dad. I've raised my son alone since he was 4. I have a decent job and a 2-bedroom house that fits us fine. No spare room. If the kid moves in, the boys share a room permanently. There's a difference between sleepovers and permanence. There's a difference between helping a kid out and becoming legally responsible for him. If I say yes, my budget tightens, my space shrinks, my time gets split. Everything that works in my life works because it's calibrated for 2 people. Adding a third changes the math. If I say no, he gets placed out of county. New school. No friends, no familiar anything. He loses the one piece of stability he's managed to hold on to. I know what that kind of upheaval does to a kid who's already been through too much. I told the social worker I needed 2 weeks. She didn't push. I don't know if she could hear in my voice that I was already leaning one way. I spent that time running numbers, calling her office back to ask about the fostering allowance, making spreadsheets. The allowance was higher than anything I'd seen quoted online. Enough that with it, I could drop to a 3-day work week and still cover a larger house. I talked to my employer, who said they'd support whatever I decided. On paper, it was workable, but the spreadsheets weren't really the problem. Money wasn't what was keeping me up at night. About 10 days in, I was doing dishes after dinner, and my son came into the kitchen. He stood there a second, like he was working up to something. Then he said, "Dad, he told me that the weekends he spends here are the only time he doesn't go to bed hungry." I didn't turn around. I kept my hands in the water and nodded like he'd told me something ordinary. I didn't want him to see my face. I called the social worker the next morning, said yes before she'd finished her greeting. The week that followed was paperwork, conversations with my employer about reducing my hours, starting the process of finding a bigger place. My mom thought I was losing my mind. She kept texting me reasons it wouldn't work. I understood her concerns. I also knew I wasn't changing my answer. Yesterday, we sat the kid down. The social worker was there. We told him he was being placed in foster care, and we told him where. He went quiet. His eyes got red, but he held it together, which made it harder to watch than if he'd cried. He asked about his mom. The social worker said arrangements could be made for supervised visits. Then he looked at me and said, "Are you sure you actually want me here?" I told him I'd already been sure for a year. He didn't say anything back. He just looked down at the table for a long moment and nodded, very slightly, like he was filing that away somewhere he could keep it. Today he asked if he could put some of his stuff in the bathroom drawer. I told him it was already his drawer. He said, "Oh, right," and went back upstairs. We're figuring the rest out as we go.